fun places. So, yeah.
That being said, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. And as always, stay safe. Thank you guys.
Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. That means 00.00 sign. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
So to begin our review of all 30 NBA teams' grade throughout the entire season, we're going to start in the West. And the way this is going to work is, I think it's letter grade, right?
Yes.
So by the end, we'll have like a fully fleshed tier of how every team did. All right, so who's the first team we're going to be reviewing?
Our first team in our alphabetical order, obviously, so it's easier for y'all to understand. We start off with the Dallas Mavericks, who I heavily overrated.
I mean, they did about. I would say, considering how top heavy the West was, they did just about as well as a team that good could do in the West. And they actually gave the Clippers a run for their money in the postseason in that first round. I don't know, so B or C.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll give them like a B, like a mid B, like a mid B.
B or C, so that's 4 whole letter grades it could be.
I would probably put Dallas in the B- range then, because they definitely did above average, but at the same time, they were one of the worst. They were probably one of the worst playoff teams in the West. So I would put them above average, but barely above average for how they did on the season. Also, Doncic for 2020 MVP or 2021.
We'll see.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. However, I'd have them in the B range, not a B-, not a B+, just in the middle at a B. They were pretty good for their expectations, and Luka really took the step up, and Kristaps began to, and then his knee got destroyed again. But this team has a really bright future. I'd have them in a B personally. I can't put them any higher than that though, because they didn't go deep enough in the playoffs for their grade to be higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of bouncing off of what you both said, I also have them at a B. They made the playoffs in the top-heavy West, and this was the first season that we could see Doncic and Porzingis together, and they've proved to us that they're going to be a scary duo. They already are a great duo, and so they have a lot of future ahead of them. They've got a lot of good role players on that team. So, yeah, they definitely proved that they are a team that's going to be here for a while in the West. So they definitely exceeded expectations. So I'm going to give them a B.
This is Cap. They got an A for me because in the top heavy West, where everyone's counting, saying Clippers, Lakers, Rockets, hey, man, 1 or 2 games goes a certain different direction. The Mavericks could have been playing the Lakers. And I am still very confident that they could have beat that Clippers team for sure.
But they didn't.
But barring some injuries, I think they could have, and they should have, in my opinion. Luka was playing out of his mind. Porzingis is okay. I don't really think he's as good as he was in New York anymore, but paired with Luka's magic, I don't know, man. I truly think that they are an A caliber team, and I don't think you can give them any downside for what they did this year.
If 2 games in the finals went differently, the Heat would have won the championship.
The one thing that I will say, though, for the whole, Dallas didn't do anything wrong that they could have. Dallas was an absolutely deplorable team defensively. They were horrible. Yeah, offensively, they were one of the best in NBA history, but defensively, they were, awful.
But you can't really expect much more. They lost their starting center in the middle of the season. And Luka's not a great defensive guard. Hardaway Jr. is not a great defender. And Kristaps is recovering from injuries. He's a decent defender. It's just his shot blocking is really what highlights his defense. But like he's lost a little bit of mobility, but he's getting it back. But I mean, I'd say like Finney Smith is their only really, really good defensive starter, and aside from it, it's kind of rough. So yeah, their defense was bad. But
I'm gonna say Denver finishes with an A. Almost. Ooh, I'll say A. I won't say A+. Denver did a lot more in the postseason than I thought they would, because I thought that they were a team that struggled. They were a team that had to work their ass off to even win a series. And they did, of course, but like last season, they went to 7 games against a Spurs team that they absolutely should not have gone 7 games against. Then they lost in 7 games to a Trailblazers team that Lillard was not on his best game.
But McCollum was.
Yes, I understand, but I'm still saying their superstar was not playing to the level he should have been playing at. But then this year, you see them come back from 3-1 twice, one time against the Clippers, and then they pushed the Lakers to 5 games. Well, not really pushed, but yeah.
It was a close 5, though. Like, the 5 were
I'm
close.
going to say Denver gets A. Jamal Murray's development in the postseason, we could really see him become a superstar guard. I don't think he's an all-star. There's still way too many good guards in the West for him to really be an all-star. Yeah, I'm fine with saying Denver got an A this year. Solid A.
I'm going A- because I actually expected them coming into the season. I just looked back, actually. I had them getting the 2 seed, and they came close to that. But playoff-wise, they did better than I thought they would, especially, beating the Clippers. I didn't expect them to do that. And, I mean, coming back from down 3-1 twice, I've been saying since last year, Jokic in the playoffs always steps it up. And that was always my biggest argument for him being the best center in the league. And I have no questions anymore that he is the best center in the league. I wasn't sure about it before. Now I'm more than sure. But they exceeded my expectations in the playoffs, so I can give them an A-, but I can't give them an A because I expected the regular season to be a little bit better. But, I mean, what can you say?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think I'm going to go with an A as well. They went far and beyond my playoff expectations. I did not see them beating the Clippers. I thought that they would lose in 6. Jamal Murray has now shown that, well, he's shown his potential. I don't think he'll be an all-star. I think it's a little bit of recency bias. But this Nuggets team is serious. They're young, too, which is scary. They're going to be contenders in the West for a while. They did everything that they were supposed to do and expected to do, but they did more. They excelled that in the playoffs by going to the Western Conference Finals, which I'm sure very few people expected. But yes, in the regular season, they were still great. I think they were the 3 seed. And yeah, like you said, Jokic proved he's the best center in the NBA. Jamal Murray, top 10 point guard. Yeah, they get an A.
Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and give them a B+. I don't think they quite cracked the A because for the past couple years, they've kind of just been the same team that you expect to go deep in the playoffs and you expect them to have a higher seed, but never really like this year. Okay, so from standard years, I would give them like a lower B, C+ rating. The reason I'd give them a B+ this year is because they extended all those games coming back from 3-1 and they beat the Clippers. But I'm not really going to give them a whole ton of credit for the Clippers because the Clippers suck. But I'll give them a B+ because they're a rising team. I love Jamal Murray. Jokic I think he's still second best center, but it's an argument for sure after that series. I got Embiid. But, that team's a scary team. Mike Malone's a great coach. I like the team a lot. I just don't think that unfortunately, they ran into the Lakers, which really halted they just get into these, like, it's a brick wall for them, man. They make the playoffs. They do really well in the playoffs. They do really well in the regular season. And then they just hit this brick wall and they die. And that's just what happened to them again.
All right. So the next team up in the order, Golden State Warriors.
This is really
tough.
This is
like,
you know what?
Really hard to
so
judge.
Considering the expectations was that they would make the postseason as a lower seed, I mean, injuries happen. And they got killed by injuries, but I'm still going to go like C, D tier. I'll go C minus. Curry getting hurt for most of the season was huge. That was a huge hit for them. I said from the beginning that D'Angelo Russell would turn out to be trade bait for the Warriors, and I was right. Wiggins ought to be a decent pickup. This was definitely a season that they took this year off, understanding how many injuries they had, to revamp for next year. So now they have second pick in the draft. They get Wiggins, Clay and Curry are healthy next season. So, but still for this season, I'm going to go C minus because even though they definitely performed way below expectations, it is because Curry completely shattered his wrist. And so I'm going to go C minus.
I can't give them that low of a grade though, because their expectation, well, they can't really help it though. You know what I mean? Like you have to look at it like this. And I may grade them in a way of how they set themselves up for the future and how they carried themselves this season. In that case, I would give them like a B or higher because you got to think about it like this. They got the number 2 pick in the draft. They got a high pick in the 2021 draft and Wiggins for D'Lo. And then they'll have healthy Curry, healthy Clay, a bit of cap space, and well, Draymond, obviously, and that number 2 pick. They set themselves up very well despite this. Well, what do you
it's a mix of both of those things.
I don't know how to mix those two together.
Okay, well,
like disaster of a season. However, if we're basing it solely off of their expectations, I can't give them any higher than a C, but they set themselves up very well for the future.
So what are you giving them?
I'll just say a C.
So, yeah, this one is tough to grade because, of course, going into the season itself, we thought that they were going to go to the postseason, but Curry and Clay being out, I'm going to say a D+. The reason I say that is because they still had D'Lo, who was going into the season again, was a top point guard, and he kind of regressed a little bit this season. They have young players for the future. They now traded D'Lo and have Wiggins. They set themselves up perfectly for the future. And that's why I'm not going any lower than a D+. But, I mean, they won, 15 games? It's kind of hard to say that a team that just went context, of course, but a team that just went to the finals and now being the 15th seed in the West, I don't know. They still had a great player in D'Angelo Russell for half the season, and then they didn't do anything with it. They didn't get wins at all. And so I can't really give them any higher than a D+. Sure, their future is very like B and higher, but I don't know. I can't give them higher than a D+.
But to say they had D'Lo, but it led to no wins. I mean, like the rest of the roster was a G League roster, aside from Eric Pascal and like Marquise Chris. Like half the time that was a G League team. Like they had Bowman at point guard, and they had Damian Lee starting a ton of games. Like that was a G League team. Like you can't after the Curry injury, you could not expect them to get many wins.
Okay, think about it like this though. So you add Curry to that roster, but it's still that same G League roster. I mean, like, I would expect them to get more wins because Curry's there, of course. Curry's there, of course. But D'Lo, again, going into the season, was like a top 10 point guard in the NBA, coming off a great playoff run that he had with the Nets. Like, I expected D'Lo to do good things on the Warriors, and he didn't. He wasn't that good. He regressed a lot. I expect more than 15 wins out of a guy that was just in the playoffs and was the leader of that team.
D'Lo was more productive in his minutes in Golden State, was more efficient and all that, just couldn't lead to wins. And I mean, his team did not help at all. But like you saw him, he was putting up crazy numbers in some games. Scored, I believe, 53 against Minnesota, I want to say. played 33 games there. He got hurt a bunch of games. I mean, I can't really expect them to win a ton of games considering his teammates were not very good. They're like bench caliber players.
So there's three things I need to address. First and foremost, I'm going to say F. The reason I say F is because of these three things that we all either need to come to terms with or agree with me that it's an F. Number one, Steve Kerr is not the coach we thought he is. Because if Steve Kerr was the coach that we think he is if he's the championship caliber coach and he's the Greg Popovich kind of coach or any kind of stellar coach that we thought, they would not have won 15 games, no matter who you put on the court. You just don't win 15 games with anybody.
I will say back to that. What I will say back to that is you are the one who always says that that coaches can only go so far.
That's correct.
You are the one that says
that is true, but
can only carry a team so far.
You keep bringing up G League team. Is D'Angelo Russell a G League player?
That team was a G League college.
Well, and that's the second point I want to bring up.
That's all it was.
Draymond Green is not what we think he is.
Draymond Green was Mr. Triple Single this year.
Draymond Green is not an all-star. Draymond Green is not a defensive player of the year. Draymond Green is not what we think he is. Period.
Either that or he took the year off this year.
He's a system player.
He is. He is the most system player of all time. And the third thing that I want to say is that would mean that we have to start talking about one of two things. One, Curry is one of the most valuable players in the entire planet and to ever exist, because you're going to tell me that if Steph Curry was not injured this year, that you would expect them to not make the playoffs? Because this is because we're talking about a G League team now, right? D'Angelo Russell, and then that leads to the second point. D'Angelo Russell is not the point guard we think he is, because he cannot lead jack shit.
You expect him to elevate Damian, Michael Mulder, who said that we said, well, first of all,
wait. You expect
kinda,
Curry
yeah.
to get them like 20 more wins? Well, that's what,
do they make the playoffs? Do they make the playoffs?
Without that, then
I don't know, but that roster also,
I'm going to stop you though.
like down with more injuries. No, they lost more players to injuries.
What I'm going to say,
and trades.
But the thing is,
they lost a lot of
into
depth.
The season, we
That's
had them making the postseason when Curry's on the team.
And no offense.
So that means you're saying that Curry gets them 25 plus wins.
But not only that, I also want to make the argument is that when we went into the season, we knew Golden State had lost a lot of their depth because people had left. Livingston retired. Iguodala was gone. Kevin Durant was gone. They lost a lot of depth with their players.
Klay Thompson was injured.
Looney was out for the season, but we still didn't care. We still saw them as a postseason caliber team.
Low seed.
I agree with Tim, though, that Curry truly is one of the most valuable players on the planet. That's my opinion. I do believe that Stephen Curry is one of the most valuable players on the planet.
Yeah.
But again, I can't put Golden State's performance of the season any higher than a C-, because it's not like they didn't have the pieces to be able to go as far as they did. They failed. They 100%.
See, I'm going to stop you right there because Steph Curry is not one of the most valuable players on the planet. That was my point to try to tell you that this is why they have an F grade.
You really don't think Steph Curry is one of the most valuable players on the planet?
Steph Curry
Tell me at one.
Wait,
how many finals MVPs?
Because that means everything, right? Really?
He's the reason.
No, that is the worst argument you can possibly make. It's the sole finals MVP argument.
He is the system of the Warriors.
He is the entire system. Don't use this whole, did he win a finals MVP? You know who else won a finals MVP? You know who else won a finals MVP? Cedric Maxwell. Cedric Maxwell won a finals
what
MVP
I'm saying
award.
Is I agree with your point, Tim, where I still don't think that they would have made the playoffs, which is why I gave him such a low grade. But Curry is definitely one of the more valuable players.
I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying, okay, every all-star is a valuable player.
No, like
I'm saying that
he's like top 3 most valuable player in the NBA.
That's still fine. But you have to be the most valuable player on the planet and of all time to take a team that you are describing as a G League team to the playoffs.
I agree, which is why I think that it's a failure season.
Right, and I say F because you have 3 things that have just popped up that are scary as fuck for years. Draymond is actual garbage. Steve Kerr is not the coach that you think he is, and you need Steph Curry to win games, period.
The one point that I want to make about the reason that I can't give them an F is simply because of the fact that even though they had a bad season, they still did come out with the second pick in the draft.
Yes, that is why I'm saying
that's huge, G. That is huge that they have the second pick in the draft.
Wait. Are we talking about how they did this year or how they're going to do 10 years from now?
But the whole thing is, how they did as a collective combined.
Also,
how they did.
You're rewarding them for losing?
Don't we do that with a lot of teams?
No.
That's what
you're gonna approve that the Knicks are doing well because they get a top pick.
No, because they always fail at it. Here's the difference. The reason a team like the 76ers is actually getting – it's not up to luck. It's called having good management. The Knicks haven't had a good management system in like 25 years.
You're going to tell me that the difference between general managers is the difference between getting a first and second pick in the lottery?
It's not the difference between getting a first and second pick. It's about getting the right people with the pick you have.
You don't know who they picked.
Tim, the Knicks haven't had a good draft pick since – oh, my God. Patrick Ewing?
Yes, but I'm telling you this right now. You don't know who the Warriors are going to pick. They haven't picked them yet. So you can't say that.
They may trade it.
They could also trade it for a good player.
But they haven't.
But the entire point –
But they set themselves up right for a perfect offseason
in the way that
they can make any decision
for all of eternity. The Warriors, even without getting great picks, have gotten great players historically. They just have.
Okay,
they managed to get Curry with the 8th pick. They managed to get Curry with
this year, and they set themselves up.
They have but they have historical precedents to say that, hey, they did something well with this. The Knicks don't.
Not even that. No, not even that. Not even that. Think about it like this.
The Knicks deadass have one good pick in the last 30 years.
Not even that. If we're going off of your thing, then why are we doing this tier list? Because it's obvious going to be like, okay, well, the first seed gets A and bottom seed gets F because you're just going off record.
Expectations from the beginning.
Yes, but it's also a mix of how they executed their expectations because they set themselves up well with what they had.
I get what you're saying, but what you're telling me right now is you are about to reward them for sucking. Because their plan going into this season was not, let's just suck and let's get the second pick. If it was, that'd be a completely different thing because they absolutely succeeded in doing that. That was their plan. They did it. They executed it. No, they said, okay, yeah, we suck. Thank God we got the second round pick, though. I can't give you a reward for sucking.
If a D+ is rewarding them,
or C-,
then that's fine.
So then what's wrong with me giving them an F? I think that's a complete failure of a season for a team that's made the playoffs and the finals and won championships for the past 4 years.
I don't think that's outlandish.
Then that's what you guys are. This is the whole point. I'm trying to tell you, and you guys are telling me no.
No. Okay. I think the reason this happened was because of the whole Curry thing of he's going to propel them to 25 more wins, which just isn't going to happen.
Next team.
Also,
dude. I'm going to say C. And here's why I'm going to say C. Is that they literally met expectations. They did nothing more. We knew they were going to be a mid-pack team in the West. They showed their growing pains. They did adjust in the middle of the season to a small ball lineup, which you can make your argument for if it worked or not, but it was effective at times. Postseason-wise, I think that their 7-game series against the Thunder showed a lot of flaws with their team, and then they just went into that Lakers series and just got crushed. They had game 1, and that was it. They got crushed in that series. So I think that when it comes to the Rockets themselves, they literally met expectations. They did nothing more. They did nothing less. I think Westbrook takes a hit, though, because of his postseason play. I think Harden does partially too, although not too much. Harden gets a very, very mediocre C. They met expectations. That's it.
I'm just going to give them a middle of the line C as well. For the same reasons. They blew up in the playoffs. As in normal Houston Rockets fashion, they go on a fire sale with the entire management crew. So that was interesting. D'Antoni's gone. Morey's gone. Everyone's just like, oh, okay, well, we lost again. Nope, gone. See ya.
I'm going to go with a C-. It's a weird thing because obviously the Rockets' goal was a win-now scenario, and they didn't do well in the playoffs. They almost lost in the first round. And they got, even though it was a 5-game series, they got destroyed by the Lakers. Their future they did not set themselves up well. Their management, like you said, they went on a fire sale. I mean, it was a rough season for what they were expected to be, but they still were good in the regular season. And Westbrook in the regular season was good. Harden in the regular season was good, but they were bad in the playoffs. I can't give them anything higher than maybe a C, but I'm going to stick with a C minus. They did not exceed expectations in the slightest.
I'm going to go ahead and give the Houston Rockets a B, because here's my thing. I feel for the Houston Rockets. They went through the beginning of the season and figured out that their system's not working anymore. And so instead of just keeping on going with the same thing, they completely revamped their play styles. They got rid of their big man, who was a very good asset, and a lot of Harden's offensive production was paired with Clint Capella. And they went ahead and got Robert Covington, and they went small. And they threw PJ Tucker at the 5, who PJ Tucker, you got to give a lot of credit for playing the 5 against all these gigantic ass trees in the middle and doing really well against it. And I partially think it made them better. So not only did they change their entire play style, but it made them a better team. And that is a lot of due credit to Harden and Westbrook, which I will always say that they are an amazing regular season player. Both of them are. And so the fact that they could do that and Mike D'Antoni be able to change his system like that, I got to give them at least a little bit more than average. And then it's unfortunate. They ran into a team that we'll talk about in a little bit in the Oklahoma City Thunder. They took them to 7 games, and they got the job done. They beat them. I know it was a 7-game series, but they did beat them. And then, unfortunately, like I will say for the other team that ran into the Lakers, they ran into the Lakers, man. You're not going to beat them. Like this year, you are not going to beat the Lakers this year. And they gave them 1 game, which is better than a sweep. So I can't give them a low grade for that. So I'm going to give them a B.
Fair. I understand it. I guess the one thing that I would say, though, to counteract the B is that when the season ended, they have blown up like practically all their management.
Again, I'm not talking about this season, though. That technically is this season.
Okay. No, I see what you're saying. Okay. That's fair. Who's the next team? Oh, so tough to grade. Because if we're talking before the bubble.
Don't be too rational. Don't be too rational. You got to consider the entire everything. I'm saying that for everyone, because I know there's at least one of you. Well, I don't know who it is, but at least one of you is gonna be a little ridiculous.
If we're talking bubble, see, this is what's tough is that the Clippers really were 2 completely different teams before the bubble and then in the bubble. Before the bubble, I would have given them probably a B+, A- for the way they played. In the bubble, they were probably an F. They played like garbage in the bubble. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say D+, and here's why I say D+. They had a lot of expectations hanging on them. They were expected to be title contenders. They were expected, honestly, a lot of people thought they would win the title. They got 3-1 by the Nuggets in the second round. And I think what really makes this a D+ is that their accusation of Paul George really bit them in the ass in the postseason. He was a no-show for practically every single game of that postseason. They played 13 postseason games in 2 rounds against teams that they were very much better than. That's inexcusable. They gave up their future for a guy who would choke in the postseason. And again, this was not a team that was expected to go out in the second round. This was a win now team, and they failed to win now. That's a problem. No way around it. That is a massive, massive problem. Am I saying they're going to be bad next season? No, I'm not saying they're going to be bad next season. But they failed to live up to what they were. They talked a lot of smack going into this season and during the season. And to get 3-1 is absolutely inexcusable on every level. It is absolutely inexcusable, especially for what you gave up to get to that point.
I also say D+. Well, I mean, first of all, to say that Paul George wasn't good in any of the games is untrue. He had at least 3 games in the Nuggets series where he was about all of them.
He was not great. You're still talking 13 games. He was bad in 10 games.
But to say he was bad in all of them is not true.
I'm saying just about all. I'm not saying all. I'm saying like most of them.
A good amount. Yeah. title hopes. They had everything. It was still looking good in the regular season, which is why I can't give them any lower than a D+. Then it kind of just, the train went off the wheels. Everything falls apart. I don't know what happens. They had Kawhi playing well for most of the games, except for Game 7 and one of the later games in the Western Conference semis. They had Paul George being extremely inconsistent. They had everyone else being extremely inconsistent. Montrezl Harrell was really bad. Like, he was getting outplayed by Ivica Zubac. That can't happen. If you are a free agent who wants to get paid, you also just won Sixth Man of the Year award, you cannot get outplayed by Zubac. That's ridiculous. Lou Williams was horrible after coming back to the bubble. Failed. They just failed. They were great in the regular season. I can say that. They were good in the first round, but they failed in the second round, and they had much higher expectations than they were able to meet.
So I'm going to go with a D. Like you guys said, going into the season, I'm pretty sure that ESPN had them as the title favorites going into the season. And wow, did they fail. That was one of the biggest team failures by a title favorite I think I've ever seen. And it's up there because the 2011 Heat as well. But wow. I mean, they were good in the regular season, and then the playoffs came, and we sound like a broken record, but they just fell apart. Their bench was awful. Paul George was bad. Kawhi in Game 7 was bad. I mean, this obviously was a win-now team, and they got robbed by the Thunder. Their future, their setup for the future is not good. They just they're screwed, honestly. This was their year to win because I don't think that they will win next year, and their future doesn't look good. So they really messed up. They are close to a D-, but I'm going to stick with a D.
A bit short and sweet since you guys have pretty much said everything I need to say. It's an F. And it's not your city, you stupid garbage can piece of garbage. That's all I'm going to say.
F because of the regular
He sucks.
season.
He's garbage.
They played. I feel like they
trash.
played too well in the regular season to be
PG
F tier.
Pandemic P and Kawhi can't hit a jumper, and Doc Rivers all trash. They're just garbage.
Wait.
Kawhi choked in Game 7, but Kawhi had a great postseason.
And Montrez can shut up about that white boy shit.
Who's the next team? Lakers probably A+. Did what they needed to do. I'm not gonna pull any narrative stuff because I hate that stuff. The whole for Kobe stuff, I just don't like it. Not because I think it's dumb. It's just no. How do I explain this without sounding really bad? How do I explain this without sounding really bad? I feel like people hung the whole Kobe Bryant narrative over the Lakers as if it was like, if you guys lose this series, man, you really let down Kobe and you should feel ashamed of yourself. Dude, that's so bad. That is such an awful thing to say. You're like, wow, you lost, and you should you let Kobe's entire legacy down. That's despicable, dude. You know what? That's really despicable. You know that's a shit thing to do.
You know why? If they were a bad team, or if they were a middle of the pack team, or if they weren't the best team in the league, yeah, it would be. Right. But they were the title contender besides the Clippers and Bucks. So no, Kobe just died. Win the championship, G. Period.
I feel like more people were affected though than just the Lakers to be pushed. Like people were people were asking questions about, do you feel bad for beating the Lakers in their Kobe jerseys?
Okay, now
who cares?
Okay, now we're going
it's still an A+ because they did what they needed to do. Bron got his 4th ring. The Lakers tied the Celtics for the most championships in NBA history. They did exactly what they needed to do. They did everything right. They're an A+ caliber team. This was an A+ season for the Lakers.
I can't give them any lower than that. Can't go higher than what they did. They met what I said they would do. They actually did better in the playoffs than I expected them to do. Well, they were more efficient in games. I expected them to win the finals, but I expected them to have to play more games. But they just walked through everyone. Best offense in the bubble, I'm going to stomp on you. Best defense in the bubble, we're going to stomp on you as well. Coming back from down 3-1 twice. Yep, we'll stomp on you. The Miami Heat, you're done. Yeah, it's over. I can't give them any lower than an A+. Really.
Yeah, it's really hard to give them any lower than an A+. Going into the season, I do remember there were talks about if the AD trade was worth it, if the Lakers gave up too much, and it's very clear now that it was very worth it. LeBron finished second in MVP. Anthony Davis finished second in DPOY. I mean, they were the first seed in the West. They won the championship. I don't know what else you expect from a team. Like, it's got to be an A+.
Trade was like one of the most balanced trades we've seen. It's benefited so well. See. Both teams benefited so well.
I guess. I'm gonna give them an S.
Well, no, they did,
because there's no grade to say what the Lakers did this year. It's magical. I mean, it's something that will never happen again. The drive from the fallen Kobe Bryant to LeBron James's legacy being questioned again, to AD's legacy being questioned because he wasn't in the playoffs for very often, Rondo being on the team, and after 12 years getting another ring, 12 years, Danny Green shitting the bed, Ash, and I hope you're hearing this. I hope you get better. Your jumper's not that bad. Just kind of clean it up a little bit, and we'll see you next year. If not, good luck wherever you go, but I guess not. The better of your twin, because your other one stinks dick. I don't wanted to see him play more. Caruso gets a ring. Frank Vogel gets a ring like this. Dwight Howard gets a ring after his entire career and being, you know what I mean? Like, it's the most magical ring I've ever seen or heard of ever, period. And it has just propelled LeBron to undisputed GOAT status. Like, I can't give it A+. It's S tier. This is the greatest championship ever.
This feels ridiculous. This feels ridiculous. You literally watched the 2016 championship with your own eyes.
Yes, I did. I watched the block happen. I watched 2016 championship. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is more important.
What?
Probably because it just happened.
Like, give it 5 years and this will be...
Give it 5 years. This will not be the same answer.
Isn't it?
Also,
Memphis.
Yep, Memphis.
Actually, I'm gonna go A. I'm gonna say Memphis gets an A. But developed a lot. In the bubble, they kind of fell apart because they should have been a playoff team, but not entirely their fault. They were the 8th seed, and they just introduced hey, if you're the 9th seed, you get a shot at beating the 8th seed. Or no, Portland was the 8th seed, right? Yeah. They lost their A-. Young talent developed really well. Jaren Jackson and John Morant look really promising. Dylan Brooks had decent stretches throughout the season. Look promising. They're a promising team. They're on the come up. Yeah, A-. I'll say A-.
I say the same. Had them making the playoffs, and they ultimately didn't make it, but they were really, really close. Morant was as good as I was saying he would be since November 2018.
Yeah, I'm going to give him slightly lower. I'm going to give him a B+. They definitely exceeded expectations. They were not supposed to make the playoffs, like you said. But because they were the 8th seed going into the bubble, and then they Jaren got hurt, and then they kind of fell apart. Make the playoffs, but they had a great season overall for their expectations, and they've proved that they have one of the best young cores in the league, and B+.
This is tough for me because JJJ and John Morant are in my top 5, I guess positionally, favorite young players in the league right now, but I'll give them a B-, because this is tough to say. I really liked watching John Morant because he was going up against the Titan, social media Titan that is Zion Williamson, the hype train for Rookie of the Year, and he overcame that because he's just that good. JJJ is really under the radar right now. I don't think a lot of people are realizing that he could be the next Chris Bosh. And if you watch how he...
I love the comparison.
Yes.
I love that comparison.
I'm telling you, dude, he's in his Toronto stage right now. I don't think he's going to stay his whole career in Memphis. I think he's going to find that team where he's going to fit in really well, and he's going to be a big impact. He's going to be about the third option, I think, is where he really needs to sit, which is why I said Chris Bosh. Like, that's why I'm saying Chris Bosh. Hopefully he's got a smaller heart, though. Sorry, bro. I'm just saying, man. Like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I love you to death, dude. But God, Jesus, come on, man. But I give him a B- because they couldn't get done versus Portland, which is a tough task in itself. To get to that point is why I give them the B-, but I can't give them any more because they could not get the job done and make it to the playoffs and show Zebo and Mike Conley that they are the Grizzlies.
Team's New Orleans, right?
No, it's Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota.
Really hard to grade because they just sucked.
I mean, we know they suck, but they like suck to a different extent.
If we're gonna do that to the Warriors, we got to do it with the T-Wolves too. Cat missed half the season, but when he was playing, he was shooting in an astronomical
here's the difference
level.
I have with the Warriors and I have with the Timberwolves. Going into the season, we thought the Warriors were going to be good, and they just got riddled with injuries. We knew the Timberwolves sucked. We knew they were a bad team.
Yeah, and they proved they sucked. So I don't know. I don't like. Don't you dare what do you want me to say,
people, Nick? I remember, and I wish we had this clip pulled up or something of Nick and Sam. Both Nick and Sam said this shit. Cat MVP race at the beginning of the year.
He was.
Why does that change?
He was for a second. No. To start the season, he was averaging like 27 and 15. Was shooting like 53% from 3 and 9 attempts. He was ridiculous.
They are sticks.
I love this narrative. One player gets hurt, suddenly it's a G League team.
We never said okay.
Well, it was a G League team, but what I will say is that they weren't winning with him healthy.
So
they just weren't winning at all.
Just as a side question, how do you think they're going to do with D-Lo this year?
They actually did pretty decent with D-Lo.
How do you think they're going to?
They went 500 with everyone else.
Yeah. So you really think D-Lo's that ass?
No, it's called the West is
stacked. The West is ungodly stacked. The West is unbelievable.
The team right above them?
New Orleans?
Not New Orleans. Wait, yeah, New Orleans.
New Orleans?
You really have Lonzo Ball and Zion Williamson over
better built team.
Drew Holiday.
Brandon Ingram exists.
Brandon and Drew Holiday just
all these guys exist. Derek Favors is an old veteran that actually is
America.
Jackson Hayes is a very athletic.
I rest my case, America.
I still have the Timberwolves as like C- tier, and the only reason I don't have it as D is that they got the first pick in the draft this year. That's going to be big for them as long as they can use it properly.
I mean, which is why I'll say C-, D+. I don't really care. This team proved they sucked. Yeah. I don't know what you want me to say. Towns did prove that he's getting better though. As time, no, he doesn't. Like, this is ridiculous. If a player doesn't win, they just suck to you. I don't under. What is your point? What is your mission?
Cat is a baby. Cat sucks.
You just see the one photo and think he's a baby. That's so stupid.
You see one photo and you're like, oh, funny internet meme. I laugh, and now this is
okay. I want to watch some Timberwolves games with you next season. Then.
And he's gonna be poo. When he's gonna go up against Slime Lamindlovich and get pooped on.
When he drops 40 on your favorite center, I'll come back to me.
Never.
He averaged 27 a game.
When he drops 40 on your favorite center and makes 6 threes in that game,
shooting extremely efficient.
Come on, this if he does that,
like he's efficient.
I'm gonna give him a D+. They acquired the first pick in the draft, but they sucked. Cat is showing potential, how great he can be amongst centers. But yeah, I mean, they're a bad team and they're not going to do anything, but their future looks bright. So that's why I give them a D+.
Their
future actually isn't as bright as you may say.
Yeah, the West has to get worse.
Yeah, the future looks bright for them if you're blind.
Also, their cap is messed up. Like, their cap is really bad right now because you have 2 players on high max.
The only people allowed to say the Timberwolves' future looks bright is Stevie Wonder. I give him an F because they have had Karl-Anthony Towns for how many years and have yet to develop him into anything more than a role player, as far as I'm concerned. You could throw Karl-Anthony Towns on the Warriors and make him worse. Like, this man.
Like, I'm okay. I'm confused. How do you make the All-Star team 2 straight years and deserve to make it a third year, although you were injured and you're a role player? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know why they vote him in.
For being really good.
I don't
understand.
Really good.
I don't
must be Stevie Wonder's cousin.
Dude, you probably think like Cole Aldrich or something should make the All-Star.
Who's the next team? The Pelicans? C-. Here's my problem with the Pelicans is that the only bright spots I saw from them this season was that Brandon Ingram was the most improved player and that Zion Williamson was actually a lot of fun to watch. Zion Williamson only played, 19 games?
19. It's Stan Van Gundy.
I argue the bubble system for the playoffs was completely built around trying to get the Pelicans into the playoffs, and they failed when they were given the advantage. They failed at the advantage that they were given. No offense to them, but we overhyped them a lot after that Anthony Davis trade. A lot of people thought they were a playoff-ready team. Clearly, they are not. Alvin Gentry is gone now, right? He's not the coach anymore, right?
He's gone. So they can.
That'll be interesting, but
he's a bucket.
That'll be interesting, but
he's a whole bucket.
Stan Van Gundy has the best handles.
Have you ever seen Stan Van Gundy hoop?
Yeah,
he by far. I would take Stan Van Gundy over Cat.
Anyway, yeah, the Pelicans meet expectations. They're borderline D+, but I'm going to stick with C- just because they're a really young team. Very young team. D+, it's not fair to do that to them. Yeah, they failed expectations. They were a team that was like everyone wanted to succeed, and they didn't.
But I'd have them as a higher C-. Pre-bubble Zion, in the very limited amount of games we saw, looked really good. In bubble Zion, though, they had that photo of him released where he was like looking like going into the bubble in extremely good shape, and then just 2 weeks later he comes in and he gains like 20 pounds or something, and he's like waddling. It's just like it's really confusing. I don't know what happened. Like, bubble and defensively he's been bad all year. But Ingram looked really good all season. Jrue Holiday maintains his great overall play on both sides of the ball. Lonzo was horrendous in the bubble. I believe I saw a stat actually. If you add his field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage in the bubble, it is lower than Devin Booker's free throw percentage.
Who?
Lonzo.
Yeah. If you add all of his percentages together, it's lower than Devin Booker's free throw percentage.
Did you hear that?
That's ridiculous.
Despicable.
Like this dude, they're acting like they just like put like fog over his eyes when he was shooting, so he just couldn't see the basket.
LeVar Ball is the finesse god of basketball. And he's doing the same thing with LaMelo, by the way.
But LaMelo's actually
LaMelo's
good.
Because Lonzo was actually good too. We'll see.
Well, Lonzo's still good. It's just he cannot score.
Okay.
Lonzo's jumper was also broken from college. LaMelo's isn't broken.
Oh, it was.
LaMelo's is broken. LaMelo's looked better, but it doesn't go in as much as Coach Lonzo.
So as a C, I think that they didn't not mean they didn't exceed them. I mean, I don't know what you guys are talking about with this
People thought they were a playoff team, my guy. People thought
they were a playoff team. But think about it.
Legitimate people.
But think about it like this.
NBA analysts thought they were a playoff team.
Who?
Literally, ESPN was saying that they were a playoff team, my guy.
When though? At what point?
Thought they were a playoff team.
At what point?
The beginning of the season.
No, that didn't happen. No, that didn't happen.
You're dumb.
When I'm done for saying that, what? Listen. They had the Mavericks at the 8th seed, bro.
People thought that New Orleans had the chance to be a mid-level Western Conference playoff team. I had never, ever heard that take in my life. I never heard anyone say the Pelicans weren't a playoff team. That's all I heard. They were I heard they would be like a fringe playoff team, 9-10 seed, which is basically what they were. Yes, they failed when they had the advantage going into the bubble to make the playoffs, but Brandon Ingram, they set themselves up great. Brandon Ingram is now proven that he's a star. Jrue Holiday does what he always does. Good young pieces. I don't know why we're saying that they failed to meet expectations when their expectations were not high at all. Yes, going into the bubble, sure, that's why I give them a C. But
I never ever heard someone say that they would be an 8th seed before the season started.
Going into the bubble, but I said high C plus, so like I'm close with you, anyways.
I'm on the same page as Sam. I gave him a C because they're pretty much the most average team in the NBA at this point, which is hilarious to me because they drafted Zion and everyone was like, Zion next LeBron, Zion Michael Jordan, Zion jumps with jetpacks in his sneakers. He's so amazing, and then he's walking down the court and he looks like he just crapped his pants. I don't get the Zion overhype, dude. If he hit, I remember specifically a game against the Spurs where he hit 3 straight 3-pointers and the whole crowd had seen like they just won the NBA championship. That's the most, that to me, that's disrespectful. If I'm Zion and everyone's like literally about to like throw people into the court because I just hit 3 straight 3-pointers, I'm the most disrespected person on the planet. But apparently to him, that's like some kind of celebration we should cause for. That dude, he's the most overhyped player I've ever seen. He's on course with Paul Pierce as the most overhyped player I've ever seen in my life. And they both probably should. Paul Pierce's ass.
If he's on par with Paul Pierce, he's doing something right. I will say
okay,
that.
Celtics fan.
Unless it's
John Havlicek on the phone over here. No, but honestly, if you want to compare Paul Pierce and Zion Williamson, they both look like they both crap their pants in the middle of the game. So, I mean, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and say Brandon Ingram's a bucket, and I miss him, and I wish he was still on the Lakers. Drew Holiday's a straight-up defensive clamp god. I do miss him. I want him over Kuzma for sure. Not even close.
Well, yeah, everyone wants him over Kuzma.
Okay, but I love him. Okay, but Jackson Hayes is fun because he dunked once, I guess. You guys are overhyping this team like crazy. They're all a bunch of bums, and they all deserve to be the 10th seed and nothing more than the most average team, the most average coach, and the most average franchise I've ever seen in my entire life. They're the Pelicans, for Christ's sake.
Didn't you just say Brandon Ingram was a bucket?
Who's the next team?
Thunder. I'm scared for Sam's grid.
S. I'm serious. Like, that team had everything going against them, and they still managed to be a 5th seed in the West. It was remarkable what we saw that team do this season. They had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs going in? 0.8. Whatever. 0.2, 0.8, whatever. They're the most clutch team in the NBA this season. They spaced the floor incredibly well. I remember we would have conversations about how scary they were to go against because there were just so many weapons they could go to offensively. They were an incredibly deep team. They were deep. They had a decent bench. Ralph Nader, nice. Anyway.
Ralph, nice.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's Simon Ralph. That's the presidential nominee for like 2000. It's Abdel Nader. Abdel Nader.
Stop with this, because y'all do this all the time. This man does not touch the court. He's not on their bench.
That's cat because he had a.
He will play in garbage time. That's it. He does not touch the court.
That's cat because there was a big controversy about him smashing somebody and.
What does that have to do with him playing?
Obviously, he plays it. He's not a news outlet.
Anyway, they actually got closer to the second round this year than they've gotten in the last 3 years.
That's hilarious.
That's hilarious.
They really overperformed this season. And they're
they get an A or A plus.
They're still set up because of the trade with Paul George. Their future looks really good. So yeah, they're A plus.
Yep. Had them as the 13 seed. So although like 99% of people will also take their L.
Yes.
Including you, Sam.
I said A seed. So like I still take my L, but
Probably.
yeah, I'll proudly take that L. I also obviously give them an A plus. That was truly the fun Thunder team I've ever watched. Remarkable season that they had. They exceeded expectations more than any other team in the league. They set themselves up for the future by pulling off one of the biggest robberies in history. And just, wow, what a phenomenal franchise. Clap it up for the Thunder, bro. They're just so great, you know?
This is unbelievable.
This is depressing to hear.
Yeah, they're great. They're so great. They're great. Even what happens this next season, we're running it back.
I will have to say, Shai is amazing. Chris Paul.
We stop saying Shai, please.
We love.
Like I want to drive my head.
Chris Paul. Chris Paul.
I mean,
honestly, Chris Paul is so close and near and dear to my heart. I love Chris Paul. Steven Adams, dude. Tough man.
No.
Yes.
Trade him.
No.
Seriously, trade Steven Adams.
No, why? He's the glue. If you're gonna retire Nick Collison's jersey, you're keeping Steven Adams.
He's a wimp. Steven Adams.
If you trade Steven Adams, I want that jersey in the rafters ripped down. I want it ripped down.
Listen, Steven Adams is terrible with Mr. Thunder. I'm sorry.
You're capping your ass off.
No.
But also, A+, simply if nothing else happened this year, A+ simply because they took the Rockets to 7.
Is
Los Suns. A Phoenix.
It's hard because I feel like recency bias would make a lot of people think like B+, but I'm actually going to make an argument and say D+. And here's why I say D+. They ruined their draft stock with the bubble.
No, like draft is the only thing that matters. Draft.
They lowered it. They lowered their pick by like.
I mean, at the very highest, they're getting a C.
By like 2 spots.
At the very highest, they get a C.
No, they're getting a C+ from me. They're getting a C+ from me because they showed that they can compete a little bit, which they have not shown in the last since dinosaurs existed, I guess. They some life and can compete a little bit. Devin Booker was the feel for that. DeAndre Ayton also played really well. They didn't even have Kelly Oubre. Mikal Bridges is shaping up to be the player that I thought he would be. And also their pick only went down by like 2-3 spots. And this draft is very like
top heavy.
It's very deep. It's very like middle. Like there's a lot of players from like 3 to 14. You can rank them however you want. Honestly, that's how prospects work this year. Prospects maybe are really solid, but aside from that, you just got a bunch of solid guys from I'm going to say 4 to 15. Honestly, 4 to 20. That I don't think their draft capital really got that much worse.
I'm gonna give.
So if anything, I think it's good that they got some experience.
I'm gonna give.
So I'll go C+.
I'm gonna give them because, going bubble they would have got probably like a D+, but due to their performance in the bubble, they, exceeded their expectations in the bubble. But outside of that, they didn't. So it kind of balances out at a C. They didn't do better than anybody expected them to. They didn't do worse. Devin Booker just showed that he's a great player more and more. He made his first All-Star appearance, technically. That's really it. They set their future up well. The average.
Bro. They are the antithesis.
Yep,
they are the antithesis of the Warriors. A garbage team that did the best they could with what they had.
Yeah, for 8 games.
Why does that give them an A?
Devin Booker hit that shot over 2 of the best defensive players in the league because they wanted to win. And they were winning. And guess what? Guess who didn't take that shot? Anyone on the Warriors. Because they didn't want to win.
Because Steph Curry's hand exploded.
Where was Draymond?
Not taking that shit.
Draymond would have
putting up a triple single.
If Draymond would have taken that shot, it would hit the free throw line.
Top of the backboard. It would have hit the shot clock.
Next team.
It would have hit the shot clock, and his backpack would have fallen off.
Next team's Portland, right?
Yes, it's Portland.
Portland's weird because
Portland's tough to grade because going into the you talked before me.
It's weird because like there is expectations with them, and then there's not, and then suddenly because you have no expectations of them, they perform really well, and then you're like, wow, let's put the expectations up, and then they don't meet those expectations. I'm gonna go C. Because they continually just have a lot of expectations, and then they have none. So I'm gonna go C.
Else to give them. Like going into the, they've also had injury issues the entire season, but aside from that, like they've been, they were probably like a B, but like overall they're like a C. Coming back really helped them, and it proved his impact on the team.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a C-. They were riddled with injuries a lot of the season. Damian Lillard had that crazy stretch, but then he also got hurt.
And 2 crazy stretches.
Yeah. And then they made the playoffs in the bubble, but then they got gentlemen swept in the first round, which that was expected. But yeah, I don't know what more to say. They were very average this season. They got the A seed like expected, and that's pretty much it. There's not much more to say.
Plus, to quote my very good,
are you using an RNG
to quote
to
quote my friend Mark Jackson, my good friend Mark Jackson? It's not how you drive; it's how you arrive. And they were driving pretty sloppy. I mean, they were off the road, hitting trucks and shit. But when they got there, they were putting up 60 pieces and 50 pieces and 60 pieces and 60 pieces and 50 pieces. And they were one of the most exciting teams to watch. You wanted them to win every game. And they were projected to beat the Lakers, which no team in that playoff run was projected to beat the Lakers.
There was one joking, sarcastic segment.
And so I'm gonna tell you
now
right
they're
now,
projected to beat the Lakers.
What a great franchise! What a great organization! What a great Damian Lillard and literally nobody else. Good for them.
All great Damian Lillard.
Who's next? Sacramento.
The Sacramento.
Christ, can we skip them?
F. I don't care about their franchise. I literally don't care. F.
So I'm just gonna give them a D+. They didn't do it. And then they caused more tensions with Buddy Hield, and De'Aaron Fox just wasted another year of his career, although he got better. Bagley continues to be hurt. All is really unfortunate. Harry Giles is coming to the Pistons, and he's gonna blossom as a backup center.
Nice.
And he's gonna be a great player, and he's gonna make the All-Star team, and he's gonna win MVP. And
yeah, the Kings.
Corey Jones is okay.
The Kings franchise. I'm gonna give them a D-. I actually had faith in the Kings going into the season. I thought they'd do better, but Bagley being hurt, and now like you said, the tensions with Buddy Hield and Luke Walton being there, it's a weird scenario. Their future kind of looks good based off their young players, but their management is just not great. So I gave them a D-.
Well, what I will say before Tim goes is that if they want to be good, they need to get rid of Luke Walton, because what made them good before with Dave Yeager was fast pace. It fits so well with De'Aaron Fox, who's one of the fastest players in the NBA. You have Buddy Hield, who's one of the best transition shooters and overall shooters in the NBA. And you have Bagley, who's a great rim runner and lob catcher, but he can also do more on the offensive side of the ball. Giles fills the same role. And Walton comes in and is like, hey, let's be really slow and boring. And then they suck. It makes no sense. I don't know. Why is he? I don't understand. They need to get rid of him.
True.
Why does he keep getting second chances?
Truthfully, I'm going to go ahead and give him a D- because I could not possibly, with a clean conscience, put them with such trash teams such as the Warriors, Clippers, and Timberwolves. They're just not that bad. They just are missing something. I like De'Aaron Fox and whoever else is on the team. I guess is what I have to say, which is why they're not F, because no one really cares. Like if someone says they're a Kings fan, they're lying to you just because they live in Sacramento. They're genuine and no one cares about them. And I really hope that they just stop being a franchise at some point.
All right.
I mean, they weren't an exactly great built team, but at the same time, like Greg Popovich, and they have a winning history. So like, I'll go C-.
D+. I expected them to make the playoffs, and they didn't, and they sucked. So they get a D+ because they just failed to perform. What do you want me to say?
Because I definitely didn't expect them to make the playoffs, but
I had them making a 7 seed.
7? Okay, no, I think I said.
Well, remember, I didn't have OKC making the playoffs like you.
I know, But like, I'm assuming you had Golden State, and I'm assuming you had Portland, and I'm assuming you had Dallas. So that's why I say that. But I mean, I think I had them as the 9 seed going into the season. So they did underperform in that aspect, although they did almost make the playoffs when the bubble restarted, having a great record, even though LaMarcus Aldridge was out. So they have a few promising players, or promising young players, DeJounte Murray, Keldon Johnson, Derek White. So they have a good team, but again, they're another average team in the West. I don't know. It seems like we're in the scenario of C- through C+ teams that just didn't make the playoffs. They're just average teams. So I give them a C-, or C. I'm sorry.
And that's where you'd be wrong, sir. I give them an F. In years of San Antonio Spurs basketball, they have made the playoffs in each of those years. And I would really like to highlight the fact that DeMar DeRozan is garbage. He not only held the Toronto Raptors hostage for the entirety of his career by how garbage he was. As soon as he left, they won a title. And as soon as he got to San Antonio, they were dog crap.
I hate DeMar disrespect. I hate DeMar.
DeMar is a wheelchair league Michael Jordan. That's what DeMar DeRozan is. DeMar DeRozan doesn't deserve a paycheck. He is so god-awful that he made the Spurs, one of the most winning franchises of all time, not make the playoffs. F tier.
Yeah, that was definitely all I was doing.
And now,
also, there was a random month where LaMarcus Aldridge was like shooting a bunch of threes and making a ton of them, and that is the change he needs to make to extend his career to being a contender, which I think is what he'll be in the future because he's getting up there in age.
The final team
where he was shooting like almost 5 threes a game at 40%. Yeah, the last team's Utah.
Utah? At their expectations for the season, I'll say C. I mean, at one point, there were people that were making the argument that they were a title contender.
No, this didn't happen. This did not.
There was a very brief point in time where people thought, yes, that's still a thing.
1 week.
But even then, after that, people thought they'd be a mid-tier team in the West, which they were. Right, so they're C. They're just straight C tier.
But why did you have the title contender?
Well, I thought the Pistons make the
because
playoffs
then I
after
wanted
the
to
first
set up
game.
the narrative that then the whole West got a lot better. So they were like, mid-tier. Donovan Mitchell is a god. I just want to say that. The very average team for what they were supposed to do. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. Nothing big happened. I almost want to give them C- because of Rudy Gobert, but I won't.
Plus, because yes, they lived up to their expectations that I had on paper. However, you got to look at it like this. First of all, they took a team that made the West a close 7, with Donovan Mitchell having one of the best individual playoff series we've seen in a while. But you have to consider all the things they went through with Gobert getting COVID and Donovan Mitchell getting COVID. And it's like, oh, this is a mess. Are they going to be able to play together again? They go in the bubble and they take a really good team to 7 games. I'm going to give them a C+ for that reason. Because like they met expectations and they were average. They averaged out for their expectations, so that's a C. And then I add a letter grade because of all the tensions that they had.
I'm going to go 1 grade higher and give them a B+. Like you said, they gave the.
Excuse me. Wait, you said 1 grade higher.
Sorry,
you said
B-.
B+?
That's what I meant. Sorry. B-. They took the Nuggets to 7 games, so it's a close 7. Like you said, Donovan Mitchell was fantastic. Mike Conley in the regular season was very different than what we had seen before, but he kind of picked it up in the postseason. Rudy Gobert. What'd you say?
Season.
Rudy Gobert was the same as he always is, and they were a good team. They but they met expectations. And they exceeded it in the playoffs. So I'm going to give them a B-. Tim, finish off.
I give them a D because, number one, I love Donovan Mitchell, but they're holding him hostage. That entire franchise is holding him hostage, and it's sad to see. They start off at the beginning of the year with a C because no one thought they were going to do anything because of the Utah jizz. Nobody gives a shit. And then they start playing well, and then all of a sudden Rudy Gobert decides to touch all the microphones because he's a giant, stupid piece of garbage. I hate Rudy Gobert. He's so trash. I genuinely don't think Rudy Gobert could play in the French league. That's how poop he is. But at the same time, I'd like to say this. They made the playoffs, and they went up 3-1 against the Nuggets. Wow. That looks like I'm going to put them back at like C+ or maybe even B- for doing such a great thing and moving on. Oh, wait. They choked it. Down 3-1, the Nuggets come back and beat the crap out of them. So guess what I'm doing? They're lucky I don't give them an F. I give them a D just because Donovan Mitchell is there. D for Donovan Mitchell. If Donovan Mitchell wasn't on the Jazz, I literally would want them disbanded as a franchise, and Rudy Gobert should be deported. Be like,
nice.
You
better stop talking about our big fella there, Rudy Gobert, before I start pounding my sister.
Our rankings of all the teams in the West.
Oh, nice. Everyone needs to be like, huh?
That's going to conclude our rankings for teams in the Western Conference. We're going to do another episode for the East. We didn't think this episode would take that long. We thank you guys so much for tuning into the episode. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media. Sam, do you want to tell them where our social medias are?
Yes, we have our 3rd-and-1 _ podcast. And in our bio, you can find our link tree to all of our other social medias, as well as the podcast platforms such as Spotify, Anchor, all those fun places. So, yeah.
Welcome back to the 3rd-and-1 podcast. It's the 3-man wrecking crew. You already know what to do. It's Nick, Sam, Tim, and Josh. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down every team's performance in the NBA season this year, all 30 teams. But before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsor.